Everybody, happy September 20th, 2020. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, we have a special head coaches panel, and I have four of the highest rated coaches in Connecticut. Coach Miller of Norwalk, first off, say hello.
Thanks for having me back, Chris.
It's great to be able to have you back on, Coach Miller. Next, I have the Xavier head coach, Coach Guion. Say hello.
Thank you for having me on, Chris. I appreciate it.
No problem. It's great to have you on again. Next, I have the head coach for Simsbury, Coach Masters. Say hello.
Hey, hi, Chris. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Always nice to be on with another hairless fellow, Andy.
Yes.
We band together. Are we next to each other on the screen?
Yeah. There's a lot of glare right now, Dave.
And last but not least, a coach who still has some hair, Coach Thierry from Danbury. And
I know he's got great hair. Don't put me next to that.
Coach Thierry, say hello.
How you doing, Chris? Thanks for having me, man.
No problem. And I think before we even start off, Coach Thierry, you've been leading the charge for both the coaches and players. You're kind of like Coach Frost from Nebraska, kind of leading the way to try to get this season or at least get something.
I mean, I don't know if I'm leading the way, but just, we're doing all we can. And I know I speak for all the coaches and players as far as, we understand the circumstances we're in. We don't take that for granted. But, collectively, we want to try to do this safely. And I think all we're asking for is an opportunity. And, we're looking at the same data and the same circumstances that everybody else is analyzing and evaluating. And, we're just trying to find a way to do it safely instead of find a way to not do it. Is probably the best way to frame it.
And I think that's a part that kind of both players and coaches alike are trying to figure out. Why is Connecticut the one state that for some odd reason we cannot get answers? There's other states that have been able to give answers one way or another, but Connecticut seems to be holding something back. And I think we all can kind of agree that there's something that they're hiding. We just can't figure it out. But first, I'll go to Coach Miller from Norwalk. When the decision came on Wednesday about football and what we seem to be potentially the final decision about at least 11 on 11, what was your first reaction?
Yeah, obviously we were disappointed, but I got to say the kids came in and it was business as usual, and that hour on the field is the best hour of the day that we have, where we kind of just get to go out there and forget about everything going on and just go on practice. But yeah, the kids were upset. But we saw that there's that glimmer of hope back now for the spring football. So, it was upset followed by business as usual. We're going to keep doing what we're doing until we get definitive answers.
Coach Guion, same question for you.
Yeah, I think Wednesday we didn't really even address it. We just kind of moved forward and said, all right, let's go to practice. And, we're gonna look and hope and pray that there's a spring aspect to it. So until they tell us no on that, then we'll adjust and react to it. But, we're just trying to literally take things 1 hour at a time, because that's really all we feel like we can do.
Coach Masters, I kind of feel like that's the same approach that you've had with these other two coaches as well, kind of just taking it hour by hour, sometimes even minute by minute, because everything's been such a fluid situation.
I think we just try to stick with what we can do at that day. What we have not for a while now planned more than a week ahead for sure. And then, if we can limit that and even break it in half, like if I know there's a meeting coming out or I know there's potential, which, I mean, to be honest, that surprises you sometimes too. But if you know that there's something coming up, you just plan up to that, or it's really you're building week to week. So when we heard that other thing, I met with the seniors, what day was that last week? Was it Wednesday? I don't even remember. It doesn't matter. But met with the seniors. I told them what we were going to do, and we didn't address it with the team necessarily, to the point. We just went and said, this is what our plan is for the next week. We'll redo it, sending out calendars and doing what you normally do as a head coach right now to keep everyone in the loop is, I've learned, and I got some advice on this, is less is more. If you don't know something, don't put it out there, because then you got to pull it back. So we're trying really hard to do that in chunks so we don't get ahead of ourselves, because it changes and then you got to redo it. So we've been doing that with the kids. We've been doing that with the parents. And to be honest, I think we'd all agree at this. Like football is with that sport that, I mean, they're so resilient, the kids, and not only the kids, but the families. Like they've gotten, like, I think we forget all that. Like football parents are really passionate about their kids playing and the sport. And so this has been, this is hard on us and the players, but you got to remember these parents, man, up and down in senior year, the parents visioning, the walkout for, like all that stuff rolled in there. That's a lot of emotion. And for everyone to stay in check and just keep plugging and showing up to practice every day, I think that's pretty remarkable. But I think that's what football is, persistence, adversity, all that stuff that we like.
Yeah, I've been impressed by how much, as far as even with the kids being told that there won't be at least 11 on 11 during the fall, that they're still going to practice. They still want to be there. And, until they're told that you can't even be on the football field and you have to stay home, they're still continuing to at least try. Coach Thierry, I know compared to the other coaches, I know your program in particular, with things being shut down, at least for the time being, because, the cases were starting to rise in Danbury, they were closed for 2 weeks. How did you kind of deal with all that?
Yeah, it was difficult. I mean, here we are, we're fighting to have a season and, trying to put everything out there to try to make it happen for our kids. And then, in my own city, we have a setback. So, obviously that was difficult for our kids. It was difficult for the cause. The uptick that we were experiencing, and we're in a time where, no matter how big or small, it's going to be magnified by 100. So, trying to overcome the optics of that and then still keep our morale high, on top of the uncertainty that they were experiencing at the time with potentially not having the season, then you throw in the fact that at least the other teams were able to work out and do stuff, and now they're on the sideline for 2 weeks watching. So, but I think all the coaches said it perfectly in here. Our kids, I mean, this is about them, and it's a testament to their mental toughness. I mean, our kids, they were outside City Hall, making a stir because they felt like they've been doing everything the right way and really had nothing to do with, what was going on in Danbury. Didn't feel like they should have their practices shut down. But, ultimately they understood what was going on, and we adapted like we always have been. So we were doing indie work, skill work via Zoom chats, and, any way we could possibly adapt remotely, we were doing it for 2 weeks. And, the second they gave us the green light, we had a full showing. All our kids were back out there ready to go.
Coach Miller, I think, kind of piggybacking off of that, seeing how the players were able to really kind of compose themselves and go about it in a mature way, that must have been impressive for you, or had impressed you, to be able to see the players go about themselves more mature than even some of the adults that we've seen during this COVID situation, or COVID pandemic, I should say.
Yeah, and I told them this, that it's probably the rarest thing to see a group of people work so hard and this whole time not have a guarantee of a payoff. Who would go to their job without a guarantee of a paycheck at the end of the week? And that's what these kids have been doing. And I've learned from them. I've probably learned more from them through this than they've learned from me, of just keep showing up, just keep doing what we do, keep staying positive. And I have an hour ride in, and I try to think of things to get them excited and doing things, and I show up and they're already ready to go. So I'm already wasting these good quotes and all that stuff going. But yeah, those kids have been really inspiring, and can't thank them enough for it.
Coach Gian, I think, looking at the situation now that there's potentially of a, I know the ECC has their alternative league. I know that there's talks about other leagues being made amongst the conferences as well. Do you think that there's going to be a situation where now we're going to have multiple leagues, but maybe not being able to be a part of the CIAC? Do you think that could create some problems?
I don't know about that. I think, and like the other guys, I think we're just kind of waiting to see what we're going to be able to do, and what they're going to allow us to do, and then what do those parameters look like, and how do we move forward from there? If they give us football activities, then I'm sure every single one of us on this panel will be like, yep, we're in, whatever it looks like. we just want to coach our kids, and we just want to be around them. And like to Pat's point, being around your kids for that hour is awesome. And it's just great to see them, and great to see them smiling. We played dodgeball for a half an hour at the end of a Friday practice just because I was like, you know what, they're miserable. Like the whole payoff thing, like dodgeball, cohort dodgeball, let's go. And, they had a good time with it, but I don't know about the whole, the league thing. Cause we don't know what we don't know. I hate to say that, but we don't know what's going on. We don't know what the next steps are. So for us, it's just, all right, hey, we know we've got practice tomorrow. We're going to plan it out and have a good day with it,
Coach Masters, is that kind of the same approach that you've had? I know you mentioned how you were taking things week by week, but have you tried to be able to, in some ways, keep the morale up with the players, or is that something where they've been able to do it themselves? And because I know with you and you have a great staff where you don't really have to micromanage. You can kind of just rover and just go where you feel like you're needed. So do you think by being able to have that, it kind of gives you at least a little bit more room to see what the players are doing?
Well, yeah, but we have 10 or 11 cohorts working, and I have like you said, and we've talked about before, I have the coaching staff that can monitor that. I don't feel like that's an issue, the motivation and pieces. And, we did not play dodgeball. Is that what you played at the end? We went to kickball on Friday.
Nice. All right.
Boy, it's ugly too. I've decided this. They're better football players, and get off the video games and go do some other activity because they suck at it. I'll tell you that much. I learned that much, Chris, sticking with football. No, but we generally, we put in something at the end of every practice these last week, 10 minutes, watching, big guys catch punts. That's entertainment. You know what I mean? We're trying to do all those things, but like I said before, there's still a hope. They still think we're going to find a way to compete. All right. So whatever parameter they give us, if they told us we can only self-contain, so we'll break up our teams into 4 groups and we'll find a way to compete. If they say we can do 7-on-7 and we can have lineman challenges and we can get a new team every week, which is what currently I think is what we're gearing towards, as I think, because that meets all the parameters, then we're gearing up for that. We're getting ready for that. If they say we can, play 11-on-11, watch how quick all these kids adapt and get ready for that. So, and then there's the spring, which, I know there's 2 proposals, or I think there's a couple proposals going before, and I know they're going to look at that. So that's another way, treat this as like a normal or an off season, or maybe like spring football. And then maybe you could, like, there's all kinds of stuff that we can use to motivate, but generally the motivation is they get to be with their brothers. They get to be with their coaches. They get to be at their school. They're together and they're working hard on the game they love. So redirecting motivation isn't really, but we recognize that, fundamentals of football for an hour every day without some fun is not good either. So, we put in those fun pieces as well.
Coach Thierry, have you done anything like that with kickball or dodgeball, or is there maybe kind of in between where maybe you made up a sport like basketball? Is that the sport that the movie was based off of? Have you tried something with that?
No, we haven't. I mean, being off for 2 weeks, we were 2 weeks behind everybody else. So
yeah, you're playing. Yeah, you don't have that time.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, as much as I would love to incorporate stuff like that, we've been just trying to play catch up. So we've had an hour long with our kids and just trying to make the best out of that time that we have and try to get to where we need to be. I mean, I heard everybody say, we don't necessarily know exactly what it is we're preparing for, but as coaches, it's kind of that burning anxiety and inside that we have to make sure that they're ready in the event of whatever happens. And I think this whole process has taught us a lot about ourselves, a lot about our kids. I think they've gotten to reflect and see that this really is more than just football. I think that's the main reason that they come back. I think that's the main reason that they're still here. I heard about, the other coaches talk about the family dynamic. We've been through a lot together this entire offseason. You even go back to the quarantine when we were doing things through video chat and, just helping these kids get through school and adapt to the things that they're dealing with in the classroom or not in the classroom. we become so involved in every aspect of their lives and trying to help them be successful and navigate through these times that it's brought us closer. So, we keep talking about taking all these negative things that we're experiencing and looking at the silver lining and turning into a positive. And truthfully, we're all, I know I speak for all the coaches on this panel, that we're all going to come out of this stronger. Our kids are going to come out of this stronger, and we're all going to be better for this. So, we're just looking for the people that are in charge to recognize our efforts, to recognize and give us credibility for what we can do to provide for our kids and provide a safe opportunity for our kids. And, the hope is that we're going to be able to take all the great things we're doing and be able to put it to use, get them out on the field, and have a meaningful season at some point this year.
And we'll end it right there. Coach Masters, I know you have something you want to say.
I just wanted to agree with him. I think over the course of this whole off season, when we first started to get on Zoom meetings and I found it easier to communicate, and more off the fact that, over the course of this whole off season, I think one of the strengths of it, there's that silver lining, was how we got to be in constant contact with our players. I mean, maybe not on a field, but I certainly talked to them more on Zoom and in person over the course of that, since March than I would normally have necessarily. I mean, you see them in the weight room, but you're not having those conversations. And through all those meetings and those conversations, I think it's strengthened our commitment to getting something going here. And we talked before about the motivational pieces. I think after you're spending all that time and you're invested in each other so tightly, I think that's actually one of the things that's paying off now in terms of strength of our programs and motivating us to whatever comes at us to be ready for. I think that's one thing that you could look to as a bonus from this, or a plus.
Coach Gian, I think this question I have is kind of a broad question, but I think it kind of circles back. I know you and I have had some conversation. We've been talking back and forth about how this has affected you, specifically how you've been able to go about. And, I think a lot of people, the DPH and the CIAC, and I've tweeted at this multiple times. I've mentioned this to people, and I've yet to be able to get answers. But I think they need to be able to find a way. If there's not going to be football, at least in the fall, the CIAC and the DPH need to come up with a plan to help coaches and players with the mental toll that all of this has taken on each and every one of you. And I guess the question is, would you have, maybe a plan, or would you have maybe some sort of input that maybe could help the CIAC and the DPH?
Well, I know, and I don't know about the other guys, but Thursday night, I think I maybe slept an hour. It's just like every now and then it hits you, and you start thinking about practice. You start thinking about games. You start thinking about the seniors. You start thinking about the juniors, like your freshman program, whatever it is. And then the thoughts just roll, and before you know it, it's 4:00 in the morning, and you got to get up in 2 hours. So it's just been, that part of it has been so difficult. And we're all in this for the players and for the kids, and you can see the pain and the look in their eyes, especially the seniors. So it's really been hard for us, but you sit there, you have your moments, you have your time when you're angry or you're tired or you're frustrated or whatever it is, and then you kind of got to center yourself and come right back and be like, all right, remember, there's still 115 kids and 12 coaches looking at you like, what's your decision there, big guy? So I hope, and even with the teaching piece, that's hard too, dealing with all that, and you're trying to do everything right, for safety's sake, for the health of you, the health of your own family, your players. So yeah, it's been trying, to say the least.
Coach Tier, I'm going to go to you real quick, because I think looking at how you've been very, vocal on social media, you've been defending the players and the coaches, and I know that you've said a lot about multiple topics. And I know the mental illness side, the psychological side is something you've mentioned as well. And I'm sure you've come up with a couple plans, or maybe at least something to try to, maybe you could put forth, because if anybody can convince the DPH and the CIAC, and will have the back of probably everybody in Connecticut except for maybe 2 or 3 people, but who cares about them? I think it'd be you, Coach Tier.
You know, I wish there was an easy answer to that. You know, I think you start with, you know, get us off the roller coaster. You know, that's the first thing. Let's stop inflicting the pain and the mental anguish. You know, I think the thing we've all asked for from the get-go is transparency on both sides. You know, and to some extent, I think we've gotten it, but in some cases, but not in others. And you know, it's made it really difficult to understand where this is all headed. You know, so for us, managing the mental health part, you know, everything that Coach Guillen said was right on. You know, from a coach standpoint, we're going through it ourselves. Just the mental anguish and the lack of sleep of trying to be the ones who are constantly adapting and having answers for when we don't have answers, creating answers or creating these adaptations. You know, as far as handling the mental health aspect of it, you know, making sure that we're okay, you know, so we can lead and do what we need to do. And then I think if anything, my strategy has been to take all the adversity that we've been facing and all the mental anguish that our kids have been going through and try to use that as fuel to show them why they're so mentally tough. The fact that you've been able to adapt, the fact that you've been able to overcome these things, you know, I keep connecting it to things that are going to happen in their life. Okay. They're fighting through a pandemic right now. That in itself has tremendous value in how they've handled this mentally. Today, it's the pandemic and their ability to play football and get recruited and go to college. Tomorrow, it's going to be a loved one passing away. It's going to be trying to put the food on the table for their families. You know, I've tried to keep it in perspective and take all these negative things that they've gone through and, again, just use that as examples for how they're going to have to handle things moving on in the future. But, you know, there comes a point where they're also evaluating and looking at the leadership around them. And they, you know, as we're trying to teach them to be leaders and we're trying to set the example for them, they're looking at leaders from the state level to every level in their lives and looking at it and saying, well, you know, why are we so indecisive? Why aren't we looking further into trying to make this happen? You know, kids, we kind of neglect the fact we think that our kids are just, you know, they don't understand or they don't know, you know, they don't understand the depth of these things, but they do. They understand. They're very receptive and they're very in tune with what's happening around them, what's happening in the world from a political level on down. They see all of it and they question it, as all kids do. And you want to have those answers and you want to turn these into teachable moments. And again, I think from top to bottom, what are the things we've asked for? Consistency, clarity, transparency, support from the mental health standpoint. It doesn't help when you have, you know, certain members of the media throwing negativity at them constantly, or, you know, what happened with the kid from Maloney. I mean, that's, you know, this young man is out there and trying to live his life and fight for what he believes in. And, you know, overnight he becomes the poster child because they're trying to, I mean, some sort of message is trying to be sent or whatever the case may be. You know, it's not fair to that kid and it doesn't help the cause. None of it does. You know, and I understand everybody's in business. Everybody's got certain motives and things that they have to do. But man, I would just love more positivity, more arms around our kids. And hey, let's try to boost them up. I mean, I think, Chris, you've done a phenomenal job of giving our kids a voice this entire offseason, allowing them to speak from the heart, you know, giving them a platform to talk about how they feel. I think that's what has to continue to happen. I think we're done watching them get beat down through this process. And if you see if there's any sort of aggression that comes from our camp, it's usually centered around that more than anything. Again, I think we sometimes are, as coaches, we're portrayed as, you know, these barbaric football coaches, and all we want is we want to play at all costs and we don't care about the pandemic. I mean, if you say that or think that, then you're no smarter than what you think we are. Okay. The fact of the matter is that the reason we're so passionate is because we love our kids and we'll do anything for them within means. And we understand, again, the pandemic and the dangers that we face every single day. We're putting ourselves on the line. Many of us have children. We have families at home. We have at risk or high risk relatives, okay, that we have to interact with. We're all in the same boat here. But the difference is we are willing to fight to the end of the road to find any safe methods that we can implement to help support our kids and make this happen for them. That's the difference. And all we want is everyone else to get on board with that.
I say, let's add Coach Thierry to the ticket for president. How's that sound? Right? I think that sounds pretty good.
I don't think
Hey, no, seriously, Coach. I think that was really, you're speaking from the heart. And I think that's something that, I've seen some people who've commented on some of your tweets or how you've spoken about trying to, again, protect the coaches. You're protecting the players. You're trying to help them and, put forth your, how much that you can. I've read some of the comments and I've kind of like, I've kind of sat back like, I don't think these people really understand unless they were in the shoes of the coaches. If they were in the same situation, if they played sports when they were in high school and they lost their spring season or they lost their senior year, I'm pretty sure they would react a little bit differently than maybe they are now. You know what I mean? And I think for you to be able to go to the length that you have, and I give you a lot of credit because you're pretty good with Twitter as far as being able to type really quick. I can't do that. But I think you being able to do that, Coach, I commend you for that, seriously.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Chris.
And I'm also going to vote for you for president, just so you know.
Write it in.
I don't want that job.
He's going to run from that. Who would want that job?
Oh, Coach Miller, I don't know if you can top what Coach Thierry did, but, I guess the same question for you, but kind of more so because you're a first-year head coach. This is the first, by far, I think, compared to what you could potentially deal with down the line, the best team in the state one day if you're able to get to a championship, that may be, easy peasy lemon squeezy compared to this pandemic and dealing with all this crap. But for you, how has it been for you psychologically and just kind of going through this process? Because nobody, especially a first-year head coach, nobody could ever predict going through this.
Right. And, I think Coach hit the nail on the head there with wanting just a little more transparency. We're all going through this together and everyone has their own struggles that they're doing. I know one of my biggest ones is, being the first year in a new program, trying to develop trust. And it's hard to develop trust when every question they ask me, I don't know. I don't know the answers to these questions, guy. I'm sorry. So that's been a battle that we've been fighting, but the support I've been getting from everyone in Norwalk, from the players to the parents and the assistant coaches and the administration has really been awesome. We're all planners at heart. We want to have this whole thing, before all this happened, we probably all had through December already all planned out. And, you got to go and scrap that. And like everybody's been saying, go day by day. And, but yeah, just still trying to develop trust when every answer to all their questions is, I don't know, has been the toughest part.
Or it changes.
Yeah.
What's the word that they use? Well, Glenn Lunger saying fluid. Everything's fluid. Everything.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the words I've written down words I never want to hear again. And my girlfriend thinks I'm crazy, but it's fluid, cautiously optimistic. Cohort. Yeah. Cohort. That's another one. COVID, cancel, all that. I never want to hear it again. Never. 2020.
Yeah, that's the list too. So,
Pause.
New normal.
New normal.
Pause. I forgot about that one too. All right, everybody pause. Don't practice. But no, in all seriousness, to kind of get back, I apologize for getting off topic there. But question for Coach Masters. I think now moving forward with potentially, I know that there's talks, Fairfield County's trying to create a private league. We already mentioned before the internet cut off, about the ECC and their alternative league. I guess the question I have for you is, and I've talked to a lot of coaches outside about kind of just, trying to get their viewpoint on this AAU private league, whatever you want to call it. Is there any concern from you about this league going forward if it's going to affect high school football past this season? Because high school football will come back one day. But if this league stays, it could affect high school football going forward.
Well, I think whenever there's something new that's proposed or there's a new, it sets off that rush of like, oh my God, this could totally destroy everything we know. And whether it does or not, I don't know anything about that because I don't know any details about it. I don't know. Again, we're in this weird situation where we don't know what the parameters are of that and how that even works, or what that's going to look like, or if there is a league that's going to start, or how that you're talking, there's a lot of logistical issues around that very topic, right? And then there's a reason why that hasn't started to this point, right? I believe in this. I believe in high school football. I believe in high school football because of the culture it provides for a school. And I think you can't, no matter what circumstance, replicate what we do on a yearly basis. I don't think how we feel about football, particularly in this group, or any coach that you talk to, or any kid that plays high school football, it can't be replicated for what we love about it. You can have games that I guess could happen in a private situation or an AAU situation. You could probably do that, but I don't think, and I think the greatest marketing value of all for high school football and what we currently have is what the seniors leave with after 4 years of participating in it. And I think that is going to be the thing that draws us back. Now, this private club, whatever it's called, and the attempts to try and find some solution to play 11-on-11 football right now, I don't know anything about that because I know there's so many hurdles that have to be overcome in order to do it. From towns giving approval to equipment to fields to this to that and the other thing, and trying to throw it together at the very last minute doesn't seem practical to me in any sense. And so I don't know if this evolves into something, but I do know that, what I feel like, if you can capture what we do all the time, that's the motivation for coming back. So I'm not, when it first came out, I'm pretty sure we all were like, oh, this could be this and this could be that. Mm-hmm. But again, I'm trying not to get too far ahead of ourselves. I think to pause and reflect and think about what we really do for a whole year with kids, and the connection that we have to the school and the connection we have to the community. And I think that's the buy-in from the kids. Like, I don't know if you can replicate that in a private AAU situation. And you need, think about the numbers that you would need in order to do that. So there's lots of logistical issues alone. But I think the passion that people have and the commitment to the brotherhood and the family and all those things that we provide, is going to outweigh anything that can provide. We have a staff of 18 professional coaches that spend all year working on that. I just feel like what we're selling is pretty good, and I think that the fact that there hasn't been any kind of AAU situation or private situation up to this point is really, there's a reason for that, because they can't replicate what we are doing. That's my thoughts on that. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
No, it does. I like, the part where, because kind of stepping back, because where we are in 2020, everybody, because there hasn't been much to do, any little information, people go crazy over it. I mean, think about, the Browns. They lose one game and all heck broke loose. I mean, if they didn't beat the Bengals, and they just barely beat the Bengals, if they lost that game, Baker Mayfield's on the hot seat. I mean, everybody kind of lives in that, panic mode, I kind of feel like. But to go back to the point where I heard from, the coaches I asked, I understand their situation, because I know high school, like you said, being able to replicate high school football is impossible, because high school football is what it is. And I feel like trying to incorporate something like an AAU style, figuring what we've seen, how it's affected basketball and the game itself, and kind of how players move around. I guess the question I have, and I'll stay with Coach Masters here, is the AAU and kind of how it's brought about, where the people, I'm trying to think of the right word, I guess, money hungry. I don't know. Again, they smell blood in the water, because these kids want to play football. And again, I'm not trying to say that these kids should not play. They should find any which way to play. But the concern that I have and I'm sure it's different for others, but the current, concern that I would have is the, being taken advantage of, because they want to play so bad that they'll do anything to do it. And I guess that's my concern.
I trust the gentleman the gentlemen on this panel, the gentlemen that I know that coach football, the gentlemen that go through training, the gentlemen that have to have approval from school districts, the gentlemen that are held to accountability standards, the people that I know around high school football are the guys I would trust my own kid to go to. And so I can't, that's my world. That's my upbringing. That's what I know. And that's where my faith and trust lies in. And that's what I would recommend to people. I like to have someone who can oversee what's really important. And I'll go back to Coach all the time about how it's really about the kids and what you're doing to help them in all aspects of their life. And for us, it's a year-round 365-day program. And we get involved and we help and we do all those things. So we're, everyone is entitled to do whatever they want to do. And you can do, if you want to start a private this and a private that, knock yourself out. I'm going to trust the guys that I know to build programs that the kids don't want to leave, that they want to stay. They want to be a part of that 365. They want to be part of that. Their families are involved. Their grandparents are involved. Their young, their brother and sister we spend time with at their youth level. So those are the kind of things that I think are important. And I think that's going to outweigh that stuff. So I'm not going to lose sleep over, those kind of different situations. I just feel like, the guys that I know that are associated with Connecticut football, Massachusetts football, wherever, this coaching, all of us know a million coaches all over the country, and we all know what football does, and we all trust them to do it. We have some great men as role models in our lives that we bring to our kids, and I think that kind of ties it in. Like these other pieces, I just don't, I'm trying not to think about it, and I haven't lost any kids to a private situation. I don't know one that exists that is better than what we're currently offering, regardless of the setup at this point. I don't know if the other coaches agree with me or not, but I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm trusting our process. I'm trusting our program. And I'm pretty sure, and I know that the guys on this panel for sure, and most of the guys I know in Connecticut football, their programs are providing a lot, better situations than anything private or, one kid here and one kid there can provide.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like what Simsbury does, what Norwalk does, what Xavier does, what Danbury does, there's a lot of programs who I've had on the podcast and even who I haven't had on yet, but just being able to read about what they do in their program and kind of how they go about, helping the young men both on and off the field. I think that's something that, again, going back to high school football, I feel like to me, AAU itself feels more like a business, whereas in high school, it feels like you're preparing these young men from the time they're freshmen until seniors. You're trying to help build them. And I'm sure each and every one of you can admit, you haven't had, I'm sure you've had some young men who came in as freshmen. They were tough. They were very immature. They were hard. But through the years, if they stuck with you, you saw the fruits of the labor of you teaching them, giving them the tools, and they helped build, they built the house for themselves. You know what I'm trying to say? But I think being able to have high school football is crucial to be able to help them grow both on and off the field. Coach Guillaume?
Yeah, I mean, you saying that just brought to mind a couple of our guys who are in the Canadian Football League, and just remembering where they were as freshmen and sophomores to where they are now. It's it's an incredible success story. But yeah, I think the experience that they get in all of our programs, and like Dave was saying about the camaraderie in the community and in the school and that kind of stuff, is second to none. And I think we all understand that there's a different situation this year. But with all that being said, I don't know about you guys, but Thursday and Friday I was sending out emails to college coaches like crazy, trying to get our kids information out there.
Right. And I think that's the other.
Those guys aren't doing much either.
Like we have those tools, we have those resources, we have those networks built, and we have like I'm sure all of us have gotten, like, what do you need to see for our 2021s? How can we help you help them? What do you need to see on tape? What combine drills can we do? What do you, all of those things. And I think that's another thing that we provide, but not just now, like we've done it all year. So I think that's another piece of our stuff. I think there's a difference between the private AAU and a club situation as well, which is, I'm not really sure what that is either, because that's not defined by anybody as well, and how that works in this world. But like, I was addressing the private piece of that because that's how you framed it. I'm not really sure the club piece. I mean, someone else could maybe talk about that. I know that the club is where I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you take your team and you have to get permission from all kinds of sources in order, your superintendent, your local Department of Health, the state Department of Health, and you have to meet all these things, and then you can go find other teams that have gotten that same permission and play. Is that what everyone's general understanding of that is? Is that where we're at? And so, when that came out with the CIAC, we're not officially holding pro, but you can go find club and you have club opportunities. There's a long laundry list of got to check off in order to participate in that. And I haven't come across many, if anyone, that can pull that off in our setting. It's still almost insurmountable amount of checks in order to do that. And so, having said that, that's another thing we were talking about, what Patty was talking about before. These kids have these answers. They say, well, what about club? I hear we can do this and go independent. And then you got to try and explain to your kids, well, guys, it's not as easy as us just packing up ship and going to go find someone else to play, because currently there is no one else to play. You know what I mean? So it's like this constant setup of answering these questions to things you don't know about. Getting back, I just trust our program and how we are going to approach things and take care of our kids. And I'm just talking.
I just want to wrap it up right here with, again, like I said before, if any, athlete or coach watches and thinks like, oh, he's against the players, like, no, that's not the point. I'm just looking out for the players because I want to see their best interests and not being taken advantage of, because through my years of broadcasting, I've seen way too much of it, and it's a shame. And I also want to see coaches like yourself have an opportunity to be able to help the young men like I've seen, Coach Masters at Simsbury, Coach Guillen at Xavier, Coach Miller, who I've seen do great work at Sheehan, and he'll probably do even higher things being the head coach of Norwalk.
Which, no doubt in my mind.
Exactly. And then, Coach Thierry, future president 2020 over here.
Look at him shaking his head. He's like,
no.
He's going to kill me. I'm gonna get a DM in like an hour. Why did you say that? No, but seriously.
Lawn sign made. Lawn sign.
Tyree Saunders 2020.
Let's
Get the hashtag started.
Yeah.
Connecticut Sports Talk sponsors.
If that happens, I'm bringing you with me.
No, in all seriousness, though, what Coach Thierry has done at Danbury, again, go back to all three of you who I mentioned before, but Coach Thierry as well as at Danbury, being able to, and I've talked to a number of his players. They've spoken so highly of you, Coach, for what you've been able to do and help them. That's something, again, to go back. High school football does that. I have a hard time about doing a private league or AAU, whatever style it is. High school football, I feel like, has to stay where it is because it helps the development. Last quote for you, Coach.
Yeah. I think, everything all the other coaches said is right on. I'll just add the fact that we're with them all day. You tie the school piece to football is really important, and you're not going to get that with a private institution. I think the ones that are functional and do well do it at the youth level, and they kind of help build a foundation, and then we take over and we kind of tie it all together. And you also can't replace the Friday night lights, playing for your city, playing for your community. There's something special about that and unique to football too, to some extent. That's just a traditional American thing and part of our culture, that I don't think will ever be lost. So I think it's important during this time. It's definitely going to shine a light on it because you're going to see teams that are probably going to have to adapt and go that route. But, we'll see how it all shakes out. And I think that's why on the peripheral, we're still working really hard to make sure that we have a high school football season this year. And I think we all have to stay on board with that, and we all have to continue to fight for that. And I do genuinely, the last thing I'm going to say is I do genuinely think that people on both sides, people at the state government level, and certainly I think Glenn Longarini and the SEAC have shown that they care about our kids. I just think that they got to come together, sit at the table, and not leave that table until they figure things out.
And we'll leave it right. I apologize. We'll leave it right there, Coach. You know, I think that was a great way to be able to kind of show kind of what every coach wants to be able to have for the players and for everybody involved. I really do appreciate you guys coming on. Coach Masters, thanks so much for being able to come on.
Thank you very much.
Coach Guion, thank you so much as well.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. It's fun.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. It's great hanging out with you guys.
Coach Thierry, I won't even say the president part. Just thank you so much for being able to come on. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, he's saluting now too. We're out.
All he needs now is the presidential wave.
We're gonna have some marching bands come by in a second. Love it.
Thanks for having me on, Chris, and good luck to you guys with whatever's next.
Pat.
Yeah. Good luck, boys.
Now wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent, and I'm on a journey to find them all. Have a good one, everybody, and be well.